Asia Post, I am Ghadi Francis. From celebrations to reality, the Palestinians in Gaza are returning to their homes that have been blanket bombed. Before we dive into the war-torn region and the news about Gazans returning, let's take a look at what is making the headlines across the region. For 15 months, we have been reporting about the atrocities that the Palestinians in Gaza have been witnessing. Now, a ceasefire has been in effect since last week, and people are returning to their homes. But many are uncovering dead bodies that were rotting in the ruins. The situation is dire. And President Trump says he is not sure that the truce will hold. We tell you more in this report.
After a year of constant bombardments, the skies above Gaza were silent on Sunday. 3 Israeli hostages left Hamas's captivity and returned to Israel as the ceasefire came into effect. Dozens of Palestinian prisoners walked free from Israeli jail, leaving both Israelis and Palestinians torn between celebration and shock.
Today we share this joy with the families of the prisoners. We have waited a long time to see the prisoners. It's good that the war in Gaza has ended after 470 days of suffering.
Palestinians began returning to what was left of their homes, checked on their relatives, and in many cases buried their loved ones. Some continue to uncover dead bodies beneath the ruins of Gaza. After months of tight Israeli restrictions, hundreds of aid trucks rolled into the devastated territory. Hamas policemen are stationed outside their damaged headquarters in Gaza City. If all goes according to the plan, there will be no fighting in Gaza for at least 6 weeks. Dozens of Israeli hostages and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners will be freed, and all the events will take place with the influx of much-needed aid in Gaza. The question is, will Israel and Hamas agree to move on to the second phase of this 3-phase truce deal? Hamas says it is committed to the deal as long as Israel stays on course.
We are committed to the agreement, but if the enemy does not abide by it, we will be ready as usual to defend our people and our holy sites in the event of any violation and aggression.
As part of the first phase, Israeli troops have pulled back into a buffer zone along Gaza's borders with Israel. But Israel has concerns over the movement of Palestinians in the enclave. Israel says it wants to ensure Hamas does not move weapons back to northern Gaza, close to Israeli communities. At the end of the first phase, Israel has also pledged to begin reducing its forces in the Philadelphia corridor, a strategic strip of territory along Gaza's border with Egypt. Israel's demand to maintain a long-term presence in the corridor has been one of the sticking points in the ceasefire agreement. Broad outlines of Phase 2 of the truce are laid out in the deal. It says all remaining hostages should be released in return for a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and a sustainable calm. Negotiators are not confident about this transition. Mediators including Qatar, Egypt, and US are monitoring the situation. Qatar says any breakdown in communication between negotiators and the two parties can jeopardize the deal.
This is a war zone. And therefore, on the military side of it, anything could happen at any time. Any party could consider a threat a reason to violate the parameters of the agreement, and therefore we would end up with having to go in and to find a way to resume the ceasefire.
US President Donald Trump has also expressed his distrust, saying he is not very confident about the truce.
How confident are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the three phases of the deal?
I'm not confident. This is not our war, it's their war, but I'm not confident. But I think they're very weakened on the other side.
You support Truce?
Gaza, boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Israel has said it won't agree to a complete withdrawal until Hamas's military and political capabilities are eliminated. Hamas says it will not hand over the last hostages until Israel removes all troops from Gaza. Israel has also rejected the alternative of having the Palestinian Authority govern Gaza. So, will Hamas and Israel agree on a plan to govern Gaza? Only time will tell.
Still in Palestine, but now to the West Bank. As a ceasefire was taking place, Israel launched another operation in another Palestinian territory. And this came just after President Donald Trump lifted sanctions on Israeli settlers that have been involved in violence against Palestinians. Now this military operation, the Israeli operation, is raising flags. We tell you more in this report.
Guns and explosions rocked the Palestinian city of Jenin, with thousands of Palestinians leaving the flashpoint city after Israel issued evacuation orders.
All I saw was a rain-like barrage of bullets fired at us. I did not know what was going on, just shots being fired. An intelligence officer called me and told me to evacuate along with my wife and children. He asked me who was there with us, so I told him that it is my wife and children, and my father and his wife. He told me to come out with my hands up, so I left.
Hours after a ceasefire came into effect in Gaza, Israel launched one of its biggest military operations in the occupied West Bank this week. Palestinians in the West Bank say conditions at the checkpoints in the territory have become worse after the truce.
Since the start of the prisoner exchange deal until today, we have been paying the price in every Palestinian city. Every day we go to our jobs and come back, and it is as if they are sending us a message. You are trapped in your town and you can't go anywhere.
The Palestinian Health Ministry said an ailing Palestinian woman had a heart attack at an Israeli checkpoint between Hebron and Sa'id town.
The Israeli army obstructed the crossing of the ambulance. The doctor said in the report that if she had arrived early at the hospital, she would still be alive now. She died due to Israeli army's restrictions on checkpoints.
Hamas does not govern West Bank. Parts of the Palestinian territory are governed by the Palestinian Authority that only recently struck a deal with the Jenin battalion. The agreement ended a 6-week standoff in the northern West Bank city and its adjacent refugee camp. The deal also requires armed groups to surrender their weapons to the Palestinian Authority. If successfully imposed, the deal would have eliminated terror threats in the region. But Israel says its government has taken it upon itself to eliminate Iran-backed elements in the territory. Hardline pro-settler minister Bezalel Smotrich, who is responsible for large parts of Israeli policy in the West Bank, said the operation was the start of a strong and ongoing campaign against militant groups for the protection of settlements and settlers. Dubbed Iron Wall, the operation was launched a day after US President Donald Trump declared he was lifting sanctions on violent Israeli settlers who attacked Palestinian villages. Israeli forces have detained several Palestinians across Jenin and Hebron. Secular violence has long been a part of life for Palestinians living within the occupied West Bank. The Jenin refugee camp was set up by UNRWA in 1953 to accommodate displaced Palestinians. Known as one of the largest refugee camps across West Bank and Gaza, it has long been a focal point for Israeli military incursions. The Jenin attacks are just one element of Israel's intensified operations in the West Bank that the Palestinian Authority says are aimed at gradually annexing the territory. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the operation in Jenin was an additional step in achieving the objective of quote-unquote bolstering security in the West Bank, adding that Israel is still active and acting against the Iranian axis in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen and the West Bank. Netanyahu's point of being still active perhaps only reiterates that he needs war to stay in power, if an election is held in Israel. According to an Israeli survey just last month, Netanyahu's rivals will win a Knesset majority if elections were held, with the margin further rising if a multi-party alliance ran for elections with former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett as its leader. But here's the catch. Without peace, there can be no elections. And without elections, Netanyahu continues to remain in power.
One of the largest American embassies in the world is in West Asia. And in particular, it is in Lebanon, the country I'm currently standing in. Now, this has been reported in Lebanese reports previously. But when a British former diplomat, Craig Murray, reported about this, it took another kind of attention. We sat down with Mr. Murray. Listen in. Situated in the Lebanese capital of Beirut, the US has one of the world's biggest embassies. Spread on 43 acres of mountainous terrain, it overlooks the Mediterranean Sea. The multi-storied building is 50 times the average size of any embassy, adding to the mystery surrounding this compound over the years. WION spoke to a former British diplomat to Uzbekistan, Craig Murray, about the massive project of the US in Beirut.
This building, this series of buildings, is being built for 5,000 people. And there's nothing in the functions of an embassy which requires that number of people or that extensive a series of buildings. And Lebanon is a tiny country. It's the size of Connecticut or Yorkshire. It has a population of 5 million or a little more. And this is the second biggest embassy in the world. Why are you building the second biggest embassy in the world as the embassy to a tiny country? The whole official story makes no sense whatsoever.
US first announced the mega project in 2015. It began working on the embassy in 2017. US says the structure is created in such a way, leaving scope for further expansion. But does the expansion have only a diplomatic purpose? Craig Murray says the compound looks similar to a crusader and that it projects the imperialism of the West.
This embassy is to do with regional control. It's far too big to be anything to do with Lebanon. It's a center for regional control, for military control, for espionage, and also for the kind of degree of control which the Americans are exercising over governance here, over the financial institutions, over political institutions, over parliament. It's an imperial headquarters. That's how I would describe it. It also looks remarkably like a Crusader castle.
The US claims the consular services in the areas are dedicated to public diplomatic functions and are designed around visitor experience. It features waiting areas, shaded gardens, and an art program featuring site-specific commissions from international and Lebanese artists. Reports, however, claim the U.S. campus project is a front for Washington's covert operations in the country. Many have compared it with the world's biggest embassy that the U.S. houses in Iraq. The former British ambassador says the $1 billion fortress has underground networks and prisoners. He also claims it houses CIA headquarters.
I think this one is much more CIA headquarters than a military headquarters. I think that's the essential difference. Also, though, the American embassy in Baghdad doesn't have much which is underground. Its topography is such, but it is what you see. It's the buildings on the surface. Whereas this one in Beirut is much larger than it looks, because a great deal of it is actually inside the hill, but you can't see. If you look carefully, you'll see an awful lot of double doors and opening essentially into the hillside.
Lebanon has frequently faced Israeli fire. Beirut and its suburbs were one of the most targeted areas in Lebanon. Lebanese Hezbollah group and Israel recently agreed to a 60-day truce last year. The new Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, has promised to rebuild what was lost in 14 months of war. For a country in such a vulnerable state, Washington's compound and the mystery shrouding it is a red flag in Beirut. Craig Murray says the U.S. policy towards Lebanon won't change with Trump administration.
I think there's less disguise under Trump. I think we're going to see openly imperialist American policy here. And I think what we're seeing is the creation of Greater Israel.
So, what is the purpose of such an extravagant embassy? Craig Murray suggests it will merely facilitate a shadow Lebanese government. He claims to have worked in numerous embassies around the world, and he is certain this building is not just an embassy. Another tragedy hitting Turkey. A fire in one of the country's most known ski resorts while 200 people were locked inside. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he will punish the culprit. We tell you more.
Dozens of people were killed in a fire that engulfed a ski resort in Turkey on January 21st. The early morning blaze forced holidaymakers to leap from windows to escape the flames and smoke.
Then when the flames appeared, people all of a sudden started to jump with panic. A friend jumped from the 11th floor. May God have mercy on him. They tried to climb down using bed sheets. The bed sheets ripped as one friend was trying to climb down, and he unfortunately fell on his head. One father was yelling about his 1-year-old child. "I will throw my child or he will burn."
76 people were killed in the fire at the 12-story Grand Kartalkaya resort in Bolu province. 51 people were injured, with children also believed to be among the victims. The resort is located on a mountain range 170 kilometers northwest of the capital Ankara. The fire spread quickly after it started in the restaurant at around midnight. Television footage showed huge plumes of smoke with a snow-capped mountain behind the hotel. Part of it backs onto a cliff. making it harder for firefighters to tackle the blaze.
It was like the apocalypse. You cannot focus on one place, one person. The flames engulfed the hotel immediately. Like in half an hour, they engulfed it very quickly.
From January through the first week of February, the resort is a popular winter vacation spot. The fire occurred during the school break when people from Ankara and Istanbul go skiing in the Bolu mountains. The local governor said at least 30 fire trucks and 28 ambulances were sent to the site. Authorities evacuated other hotels at the resort as a precaution, and guests were housed in hotels around the province. The Interior Minister said 9 people were detained for investigations, including the hotel owner. As funerals of the victims took place around the country, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan declared Wednesday as a day of mourning.
Of course we are hurt, our hearts are hurt, and we are currently endeavoring to fulfill this duty. May God inshallah let us be together in eternity. I wish patience to all his family and our nation. I have to say this once and for all, those who caused such a tragedy in whatever way, and those who were negligent and at fault, will be held accountable for this before the law.
Let's go to the Gulf. Saudi Arabia is really looking after its image, starting with entertainment, sports, and women's rights. In the recent, it has been reported that more than 195% uprise in the number of female athletes. We tell you more.
Under Saudi's Vision 2030, the kingdom has been revamping and reintroducing new initiatives. The program is aimed at creating a thriving economy where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Apart from the infrastructural development, Saudi is also pushing its citizens to indulge in new avenues. Among multiple new projects, a new report suggests that there has been a rapid development in women's football in the kingdom. The report, called Pioneering Change, Women's Football in Saudi Arabia, is published by the kingdom's mega project, NEOM, in partnership with the Asian Football Confederation AFC. It details the rapid development of women's football in the kingdom as part of its Vision 2030. The growth in women's participation is more prominent at the grassroots level. The Saudi Arabian Football Federation's Girls' Schools League saw participation surge of 46% year-on-year to reach more than 70,000 players in 2023. There has also been a rise in number of regional training centers as well. From 2021-2023, 6 centers have been developed. This resulted in 773%. The professional landscape has seen equal surge, with the number of professional female players increasing by 195% since 2021. The kingdom now has more than 1,500 registered players, including more than 940 Saudi nationals. The report also highlights how women's involvement in football is a catalyst for bigger societal change in Saudi Arabia, challenging traditional norms and also creating new opportunities for women in sports. Despite a growth, the report also highlights ongoing challenges, focused on infrastructure access across the vast country. And now, Saudi is all set to host the 2034 FIFA World Cup. The report suggests women's football will continue to grow significantly.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I am your host, Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION. World is One.
the biggest gathering of humanity on the planet.
This is quite an interesting spot.
WION brings you exclusive coverage from the ground of the Mahakumbh Mela.
These bikes will be patrolling all around.
From security to infrastructure, from tent city to Sangam, we've got you covered. This is Tribeni Sangam, where Ganga, Yamuna and the mythical Saraswati rivers meet. Experience faith. Experience culture.
Tent as well.
Experience Mahakumbh. Only on WION. World is One.
This week on Tech It Out, we talk about the rise of AI-powered pets. We also give you a sneak peek into the 2025 India Auto Expo and find out how technology is transforming the retail industry. All this and more on WION World is One at these times.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
YO1 Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to YO1 Health Resort. Make your reservation at yo1.com.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant
Hello everyone, you're watching Race to Power with me, Shivan Chandna. Now the US judiciary is bracing for a wave of challenges after Donald Trump's executive orders on birthright citizenship. But can an executive order override constitutional amendments?